Hello, everyone, and welcome to 2025's first installment of Venza's hospitality webinar series. I'm Sean Shields, Venza's brand manager, and as your host today for this 30-minute information-packed session, I am excited. Every quarter, we uncover the latest cybersecurity threats impacting hospitality, arming you with expert insights to strengthen your defenses. Today is no different. In fact, this specific threat has escalated to the point that we can only call it an outbreak. We're talking about Vishing, the phone scam epidemic. Criminals are increasingly targeting front desk and night audit staff over the phone, using deception to steal sensitive data and extort money. So why is hospitality such an easy target? What scams are fraudsters using? And most importantly, how can you help your teams to stop them? That's what we're here to answer. Plus, we'll also share key Venza resources to help hoteliers tackle the growing threat, along with some exciting new product updates you won't want to miss. To kick us off, I'd like to welcome Venza's technical communicator, Laura Jane Hatcher. Through the Venza Echo, our expert-driven weekly article series, she has been covering the growing use of phone scams by criminals and the unique risks they pose to hospitality. Laura Jane, welcome back. Great to have you with us again.
Thanks, Sean. It's good to be here.
Well, let's jump right in. What is it about phone scams that makes them particularly dangerous for hoteliers compared to other social engineering attacks like phishing?
To answer your question, there are two real key factors to consider. First, social engineering attacks like phishing are growing at an unprecedented rate. They're becoming more frequent, more sophisticated, and more convincing. There's a reason they are the leading cause of data breaches worldwide. They work. The second point, it's something we stress here often at Venza. Hospitality operates unlike any other business. The threats, that's phishing, QR code scams, they may be the same that target banks and healthcare and other businesses, but the way attackers exploit hoteliers is uniquely tailored to the industry. So to go back to your question, why do criminals increasingly resort to phishing? Why not phishing, the email scam epidemic? Well, frankly, it's because cyber criminals know your business. The same hacking groups behind the MGM Resorts International and Caesars Palace breaches, and most recently Hotelier, know the value of hotel data. They're not just casting a wide net. They understand your operational vulnerabilities and are targeting them specifically. They know that while corporate offices rely on email, most your workforce, that's your food and beverage, your housekeeping, your front desk, they don't. Their work happens face to face, over the phone, and over the phone, attackers can attack anytime from anywhere. Even more alarming, they know who your staff talks to. They know the types of requests your team expects from vendors, managers, and even guests, and they weaponize that knowledge to craft highly convincing, well-executed scams. So to fight an epidemic, you need to understand three things: why you're vulnerable, how the threat spreads, and what actions you can take to stop it. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. First, we'll cover what makes hospitality so susceptible to phishing. Second, we'll outline the most common scams we're seeing right now. And finally, we'll unpack the concrete steps you can take for prevention. So let's start by jumping into what makes phone scams such a serious threat to hospitality. So why are hotels such a prime target for phishing attacks? As I mentioned at the start, it comes down to two major factors. It's the broader cybersecurity landscape and the vulnerabilities specific to hospitality. In the December edition of the Venza Hospitality Webinar Series, we examined the surge in social engineering attacks across the board and how hospitality has been hit particularly hard. This became alarmingly clear when in 2023, three major hotel brands fell victim to multi-million-dollar cyber attacks in a single month, two of which began with phishing. What followed was a dramatic rise in social engineering attacks against hotels, nearly a 300% increase in just the first half of 2024. Adding another layer of complexity to this is AI technologies. Attackers can now use voice cloning and deepfake tools to impersonate trusted individuals with startling accuracy. Since the technology has become widely available, cyber criminals are already using this as part of their core toolkit. And the impact, we're already seeing this. It's 1 in 10 people have been targeted by AI-powered vishing scams, and more than half of US and UK companies were hit by AI-driven fraud in 2024. So social engineering attacks against hoteliers are becoming more sophisticated and more frequent, but that's just kind of one part of the story. Attackers don't use these techniques unless they know they work, and unfortunately, as we have seen, they do. Since 2022, Venza has tracked a sharp rise in successful phishing attacks, which now account for nearly 40% of all reported incidents. Their primary target is often the front desk and guest services staff, especially those working the night audit. And you may ask, why then? Well, it starts with hospitality's guest first mindset. Scammers know that exceptional guest service is a hotel's top priority. They take advantage of this by targeting the employees responsible for delivering it. Unlike phishing emails where employees have time to think or before they respond, phone scams often demand an immediate action or reaction. Attackers prey on that urgency, using that psychological pressure of being forced to make a quick decision to make the employee feel obligated to help. And second, it's the timing. The night audit shift presents the perfect opportunity, as these team members are often working alone or with limited oversight. Attackers know they face less scrutiny and have a higher chance of success if they go after them. So you can now see in part why front desk teams are uniquely vulnerable, but there's a larger shift happening in hospitality that makes them an even bigger target. As hotels become more digital, they rely more and more on third-party vendors for essential functions like property management systems, IT services, and online travel agencies to drive bookings. Properties under a flag must also coordinate with brand representatives, handling loyalty programs and customer care. And while many of these entities use internal platforms and email for routine communication, what happens when an issue is urgent? They pick up the phone and call the hotel directly, where the front desk are the first to respond. For vendors and third parties, the front desk is that first point of contact for problem solving. It's routine, and attackers know it. It's simple to figure out which property management system a hotel uses, especially if it's part of a brand. That makes it easier for scammers to pose as PMS support and immediately sound legitimate. Because tech support teams work on tickets and callback systems, an unexpected follow-up call isn't unusual, especially after a shift change where lapses in communication naturally occur. This is the true danger of vishing. The caller, the reason, sometimes even the request. Nothing feels off enough to signal an immediate red flag, allowing scammers to build trust and manipulate victims further. So with this in mind, let's transition to the most common scams we're seeing today. Now, phone scams targeting hotels come in many forms, but the ones that exploit third-party relationships we're seeing pose the greatest risk. So let's break down the four most dangerous scams we're seeing and how they work. The first, recovering is not only common but incredibly effective, especially against night audit teams. A caller posing as your PMS provider claims an urgent system update is needed to ensure the night audit runs smoothly. To proceed, they ask for employee credentials or guide staff through granting remote access to their workstation so they can process the update. This works because scammers come prepared. They know exactly what PMS your hotel uses, and that updates are typically scheduled during the night. In some cases, hotels have fallen prey to the scam on the very night a real update was planned, and that just proves just how well-timed these attacks can be. Now, the second scam has existed in some form or another since the dawn of the internet. That's the tech support scam. A caller pretending to be from your hotel management company's IT support claims there's an issue. Maybe a workstation needs an urgent update or unusual activity has been detected. They ask for remote access or login credentials to again fix the problem. Hotels are especially vulnerable to this because IT is often managed remotely, so these calls don't seem all that unusual. A variation of the scam was used in the 2023 MGM Resorts breach. Hackers gathered an employee's details from LinkedIn, impersonated that employee on a call with IT, and within minutes gained admin level access to their entire system. Now, the third scam is an emerging threat that's quickly gaining traction. It's known as TOAD, or telephone-oriented attack delivery. These scams combine email and phone calls to coerce individuals into unknowingly downloading malware, and the risk is growing fast. Studies show that businesses are targeted by millions of these sort of hybrid attacks each month. In hospitality, this often starts with scammers impersonating third-party booking platforms or Their representatives, they send an email about a guest complaint or an issue with a reservation, then immediately follow up with a phone call urging staff to open the email's attachment. Now, a dangerous twist on this scam involves a supposed guest calling the front desk, claiming they're lost and asking for directions. To make it easier, they email a screenshot of their location. The unsuspecting employee opens the attachment only to unknowingly download malware onto their system. Now, the fourth and final scam plays on the complexity of hotel billing. Between credit card authorization forms and OTA virtual cards and direct billing, there's plenty of room for confusion and issues to arise, and scammers know it. They pose as OTA representatives or brand customer care and call about a billing issue, maybe a refund request or an overcharge. They then pressure the agent to process a fraudulent refund, or worse, convince them to read the credit card details over the phone under the guise of verifying payment. Now, these four scams aren't the only phishing threats we're seeing, but they are some of the most dangerous ones we've seen that have successfully led to fraud and data theft. So let's go ahead and shift our focus on how you can effectively defend against them. Having spent years managing and working at the front desk, I know firsthand that phone scams are nothing new to hospitality. One of the oldest tricks in the books, it involves scammers calling the front desk and requesting a transfer to a random room number, hoping it exists and it's occupied. If the call goes through, they impersonate impersonate the hotel front desk, claiming there's an issue with the guest's card. Trusting the caller ID, which again says front desk, the guest willingly provides their payment details, falling victim to fraud. This scam has become so common and affected that it shaped one of the earliest phishing prevention rules in hospitality. Never transfer a call to a guest room without verifying both the last name and room number on the reservation. I worked at several hotels, and while the level of training I received differed drastically from each, this rule was consistent. I bring this up to highlight the power of rules. Rules don't appear out of nowhere. They are built from structured, documented procedures that define the right actions for each role. When employees understand these expectations, they know they're accountable for upholding them, and security isn't a guideline, it becomes part of their job. So the foundation of phishing prevention is clear: documented procedures. While training, awareness, and technology does play a role, none of these can fully stop evolving scams. They only address today's threats. And as phishing tactics continue to rapidly evolve, they may outpace them. As I said, phone scams in hospitality aren't new. What is new is that they are more frequent, more sophisticated, and hitting frontline staff who are juggling more problem-solving responsibilities than ever before. So let's focus on how you can build procedures that don't just react to threats, but become lasting rules that safeguard your teams no matter how these scams evolve. To do so, we must first break down the threat to its core elements. What do nearly all of these scams have in common? One, they begin with a phone call. Two, they request something, whether it's remote access, a room transfer, sensitive information. They need an employee to act for them. And three, they impersonate someone, a vendor, a guest, a friend trying to reach someone staying at the hotel. With these, you can establish a single rule that stays relevant no matter how phishing tactics evolve. Always confirm a caller's identity before fulfilling their request. This is where you can begin building a documented procedure. Fortunately for clients of Venza, we've done the hard work for you. We've created a policy template that outlines a standard operating procedure for verifying vendor calls and requests over the phone. It can be implemented immediately or customized to fit your hotel management company's needs. However, every hotel has unique protocols, and if you're building your own, here are some key components to include. So first, implement clear and efficient steps for verification. Ensure employees can authenticate vendors through secondary channels like official contacts or email without any operational friction that might tempt them to bypass that process. Once in place, empower employees to enforce it. Staff should confidently say, per policy, I cannot verify, or I must verify this request before proceeding. If verification causes delays, management should always support that decision as well. Two, define what can never be shared without approval, such as credentials, guest personal information, and remote access, unless expressly approved by management. Afterwards, define a clear escalation process so sensitive requests may be funneled efficiently to management for review. The third and final component, combat deepfake impersonation by implementing an internal code word, as deepfakes can now replicate the voices of management and leadership with alarming accuracy. This code word can be used by personnel to verify each other's authenticity. Finally, make sure this procedure is easily accessible and all workstations where calls are handled, and of course, train staff to enforce it. So, to conclude, phishing is not only a cybersecurity issue, it's an attack on the way hotels operate, exploiting trust, urgency, and routine. But as we've discussed today, prevention isn't complicated. It's about clear rules, structured procedures, and staff empowered to enforce them. Because in the end, stopping phishing isn't just about catching today's scams, it's about future proofing your hotel against the threats of tomorrow. Back to you, Sean.
Thanks so much, Laura Jane. Next up, I'm excited to welcome Venza's Chief Information Officer, David Christensen, to the webinar. As a seasoned hospitality IT professional, David brings a wealth of expertise backed by multiple specialized certifications, including Certified Information Security Manager and PCI DSS Qualified Security Assessor. He also holds a Master of Business Administration in Information Technology Management, giving him a strategic understanding of IT governance and risk management in hospitality. With this deep technical and business expertise, David has been instrumental in assisting hotel partners who have been targeted or fallen victim to phishing scams. His background provides a unique perspective on both the technologies that can mitigate these threats and the operational challenges hotels face in the aftermath of an attack. David, it's great to have you here.
Thank you,
From
Sean.
your experience, what unique challenges do hoteliers face when an employee falls victim to a phone scam compared to phishing or an email attack?
Well, with phishing attacks come unique challenges. Three of those would be digital trails, technology, and employees. When a phishing email succeeds, there's often a digital trail, but scams are different. Phone scams are different. This makes it challenging to investigate and understand the specifics of a breach, or if there even has been a breach. Technological safeguards can filter and flag phishing emails, but here lies the conundrum. There are technologies that can assist with phishing, but none are as effective or advanced as detection as email security. For the employees, phishing and email hygiene are often the most emphasized in security training programs. The employees may be trained to recognize suspicious emails, but may not be equally prepared to handle the deceptive phone calls. Additionally, as Laura Jane highlighted, hospitality's unique operations and guest-first mentality make hotels especially vulnerable to these scams. With successful attacks, the consequences are far more nuanced and complex than those of phishing or other social engineering tactics. Part of the challenge is that phone scams in hospitality are widespread and not all have the same goal. Some target access to critical systems and sensitive data, while others focus on isolated credit card fraud. With reporting and detection, when an employee suspects that they've been compromised in a phone scam, it provides a clearer framework for assessing what data or access was affected. However, phishing scams are becoming so sophisticated that many employees don't realize they've been deceived. Unlike phishing, where red flags like account lockouts or unusual computer behavior can trigger immediate reporting, phishing often goes unnoticed. As a result, detection typically happens after the fact, when a guest reports fraudulent charges or internal security systems flag unusual activity. Effective instant response depends on quickly identifying and containing the source of an attack. But with phishing, delayed detection makes this far more challenging, costing valuable investigative time. Even when the source is identified, response teams must rely on an employee's memory, sometimes days, weeks, or even months after the fact, interviewing them to piece together how access was gained. And if enough time has passed, the attacker may have already spent days inside your systems, expanding the breach and making containment even more difficult. In regards to insurance, not all cybersecurity or data insurance policies cover losses from social engineering attacks like phishing. Additionally, if the incident is constituted as fraud and not breach, neither of those forms of insurance may be applicable, placing the full cost on the hotel or require other fraud and crime insurance policies. Fraud involves deception to gain something illegally, often involving financial transactions, where a data breach is when private information is exposed due to a security lapse, like unauthorized access to a database. It's a complicated line that may require legal counsel to parse out to determine your regulatory notification requirements. And mitigation can be a challenge as well. Mitigating phishing attacks is essential to avoid the complexities and resource expenditures associated with incident response. While training and awareness programs are fundamental in strengthening human element, integrating technological solutions can further enhance prevention, detection, and containment efforts. Some of those safeguards may be multi-factor authentication. Most people hear it as MFA. Implementing the MFA adds an extra layer of security, ensuring that even if credentials are compromised, unauthorized access is prevented. You can also do simulated phishing scenarios, and when you conduct those, it'll help identify vulnerabilities among staff and reinforce training effectiveness. You can implement caller ID validation software. Utilizing this software that verifies caller identities can help detect and block spoofed calls. Something that's newer on the marketplace and been around just not very long is secure internet communication platforms that deal specifically with the phishing areas. Establishing secure channels for staff to verify requests, especially during off hours, ensures that any unusual or urgent requests can be cross-checked promptly. What you find in hotels, a lot of times these channels aren't used specifically for this, as may be used for other areas or departments with no onus on handling calls and following, like Laura Jane mentioned earlier, the SOP or policy on handling those calls, especially for normal business hours and after hours. Using those policies, using a secure platform can minimize the risk greatly. The last thing in technology safeguards would be least privilege. Be sure to limit user access to only what is required to do a job. Bloated access poses additional risk. There are also advanced detection mechanisms such as User and Entity Behavior Analytics, UEBA. Deploying these solutions enables the monitoring of user activities to identify anomalies, such as accessing or downloading sensitive data at unusual times or in large quantities, which may indicate malicious intent. Threat detection systems can look at various activities such as signature-based detection, behavior-based detection, and anomaly-based detection. With those three, and with signature, security solutions that scan for known malware signatures can identify and block recognized threats, whereas the behavior-based would analyze behaviors common in cyber attacks, and these systems can detect new and emerging threats. And some more new on the market in the last few years with AI, machine learning, and analytics, they established baselines of normal behavior to identify deviations that may signify cyber threat. That is where you get ahead of these zero-day type of threats. Typically, the behavior and signature-based ones are very limited and aren't able to neutralize some things that are just zero-day, but anomaly-based are much better at that. With the modern security information event systems, we commonly hear as SIEMs or SIEMs, as some people may say. These incorporate artificial intelligence and external threat intelligence feeds that can proactively identify and respond to new emerging cyber threats, detecting trends and unusual activity before you can. And with the SIEMs, they use typically one of the three threat detection types that we mentioned above. In conclusion, defending against phishing requires more than just awareness. It demands a layered approach to security. The reality is cyber criminals will continue to adapt their tactics, but with the right procedures, empowered employees, and advanced security measures, your hotel can stay ahead. Back to you, Sean.
Thanks so much, David. Now I'm excited to welcome back Casey Harrigan, Venza's product director. Casey is here to walk us through Venza's hospitality-tailored resources designed specifically to combat and prevent phishing attacks in hotels. Plus, he'll share details on some exciting new products that you won't want to miss. Casey, let's dive right in. How is Venza helping hoteliers stay ahead of phishing threats?
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me here. we have some fantastic new tools and resources that, when used effectively, can have a huge benefit for organizational security. There have been too many developments to share them all, but I did want to highlight a few. First are our Vishing resources. Phishing has rapidly become a major threat to hoteliers and one that absolutely requires targeted solutions. At Venza, we're committed to equipping our clients with the tools needed to combat this growing risk. To that end, we've developed a suite of 4 mutually reinforcing resources that I wanted to mention. First are our Vishing prevention posters. These are printable guides that cover red flags, common scams, and vendor verification tips that are perfect for high visibility areas like break rooms. Second is a one-page guide. This is a concise cheat sheet that outlines common scams and practical defense strategies, including chargeback fraud and IT vendor impersonation. This is great for distributing to your teams so that they're aware of the issue and have easy access to critical information that they need to stay secure. Third is our vendor verification SOP. As Laura Jane mentioned earlier, we created a ready-to-use standard operating procedure that establishes clear protocols for authenticating vendor calls, a critical defense against impersonation scams. And finally, Vishing simulations. As part of the Explore program, these real-world Vishing tests evaluate hotel staff's readiness against common phone scams. The results help map vulnerabilities and reinforce training with targeted learning materials. These are just a few of the Vishing prevention resources that we provide. If you'd like to see more or learn how they can enhance your current security awareness program, reach out to bettervisibility@venzagroup.com. Now, I'm excited to introduce the latest products and features that the Venza product team has developed this quarter. First is our role-based training. As cyber threats in hospitality have become more targeted, we're excited to introduce 2 new training courses designed specifically for the housekeeping and food and beverage teams, departments that are too often overlooked by traditional one-size-fits-all security training. These courses offer practical data protection training by using real-world scenarios that staff in these cohorts are likely to encounter in their daily activities. We've designed this unique form of training because we've learned that experientially grounded training is proven to provide more effective, longer-lasting knowledge retention. We've also invested in producing these courses as video-based training to meet the needs of groups who may have limited individual computer access. With a runtime of under 10 minutes, they're a great way to certify large numbers of staff in a group training certification format with minimal impact on operations. If you're interested in reviewing these courses or learning more, contact your customer success coach for details. And finally, I wanted to call your attention to the recent release of the Venza Systems Risk and Reporting Dashboard, a single pane of glass for unmatched visibility into your security and risk profile. By integrating data from the Venza Learning Content Library, Venza Phishing, and other key program features, this centralized dashboard offers a clear, unified view of your organization's security posture. Built specifically for hospitality, the dashboard's reporting capabilities align with the industry's unique hierarchies and data flows, allowing for seamless filtering from an organization-wide perspective down to individual properties. This year, we'll be expanding the dashboard to include coverage of several more Everest products. You can expect to see insights from PCI DSS SAQ completion, external vulnerability scanning, and more soon. This is all part of our commitment to making security monitoring and risk management simpler, smarter, and more accessible for hoteliers. Back to you, Sean.
Thanks so much, Casey. That wraps up this edition of the Hospitality Webinar Series. Thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions about what we've covered, remember that Venza is here to help. Reach out to your security analyst or customer success coach if you have any questions. As a reminder, this was just the first of our 4-part hospitality webinar series for 2025. If you found today insightful, don't miss our next session on Wednesday, June 4th, where we'll be breaking down incident response, how to prepare, respond, and recover from security threats. Want more security insights year-round? Subscribe to the Venza Echo. It's a free monthly update filled with industry news, product updates, and more. Just email success@venzagroup.com to sign up. That's all for now. Thanks again, and until next time, stay secure.